Why God took him away. The shocking truth behind the forgotten story of In the Bible. The darkness fell heavy over the ancient city of Judah, a stillness so fierce that even the children dared not play. Whispers wove through the streets, an insidious sound echoing fear so deep they shrouded every home in dread. Why did the Lord take him? They murmured, their eyes flickering like candle flames, full of secrets. At the center of it all was a name now forgotten, a man who lived under the weight of unspoken sins. His fate dripped with mystery, leaving only a chilling question behind: what terrible truth could provoke divine wrath? He was no ordinary man. He was handsome, with sharp features that cut through the shadows, his deep-set eyes sparkling with mischief. Yet there was an unsettling aura that lingered around him. Folks claimed he had an uncanny ability to invoke misfortune. Crops wilted in his presence, livestock fell sick and perished when he wandered too close. And yet the charm he exuded was undeniable. Women sighed for his touch, but even they were careful, as though marking a boundary between love and doom. One fateful night, a comet streaked across the sky, bleeding mystery in its wake. It was said that was out under that very star when he met his end. How could a man so vibrant, reduced to dust in the faintest breath? When his body was discovered in the dry brush outside town, there were no outward wounds, no signs of struggle. Just a frozen face that seemed to whisper in horror, carrying the weight of a dark secret to his grave. Tension crackled in the air like live wires. People gathered under the flickering lanterns, their hushed voices climbing higher with each new story. Did you see how his father's crops had flourished? An old woman said, clutching her shawl tightly as she spoke. No one ever took him in. There were whispers, dark whispers. Her eyes widened, catching the hearts of those around her, drawing them into her web of fear. Just then, a crack of thunder interrupted the gathering. The sky split open and for a moment, everything was still, a heartbeat that seemed to echo through the ages. And from the distance, the sound of footsteps grew louder. Someone was approaching, carrying the weight of truth or perhaps more shadows. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. With a jolt, the townspeople turned to see a robed figure emerge from the shadows. Who dared to intrude at such an hour? Was it a messenger from the gods, come to reveal the truth that lay tangled in the air? Eyes widened with anticipation, breaths held tight as darkened thoughts swirled like a brewing storm. The aura thickened around them, everyone felt it, a blend of dread and yearning for answers. What would the figure say? Would they unravel the enigma that had captured their minds, or draw them deeper into the abyss of despair? The night was rife with questions, and as the figure took a step forward, a single word echoed into the night. What was about to unfold could change everything they thought they knew. The figure stepped into the light, revealing an ancient face, weathered by time and etched with wisdom. I speak for the spirits of those who were wronged. The voice was low, resonating with the heartbeat of the earth. The murmurs of the crowd faded, tension gripping them tighter than a vice. Had they summoned the very essence of fate itself? It was not taken lightly, the figure continued, a sadness lacing each word. He was a man of secrets that rippled through the very fabric of our existence. He brought darkness, and darkness took him. Gasps filled the air, punctuated by the shrieks of the wind, like nature itself recoiling at the proclamation. Shadows danced on the walls of the nearby homes, bending and twisting as if they too were caught in the tumult of emotions unfolding. Fear threaded itself into the hearts of everyone present. Tell us more, shouted a man at the front, his face pale and desperate, trembling fists balled at his sides. The figure raised a bony hand, silencing the crowd. Their eyes locked onto the mysterious visage, drinking in the promise of revelation. Betrayed not just his family, but his own heart. His sins were whispered in the night, a tainted gift he offered to the darkness. A chill swept through the onlookers, as if ice water had splashed against their souls. Betrayal, cold and unsettling, pierced them deeply. What did it mean? What man could carry such a burden, to be both a charmer and a harbinger of doom? Suddenly, a shrill scream cut through the air. A woman rushed from the shadows, her face mere inches from panic. He is back, she cried, clutching her heart. I saw him. I swear by the gods, I saw . The crowd erupted into chaos, a mixture of fear and disbelief swirling into an intense frenzy. A flash of uncertainty crossed the figure's face, a flicker of recognition perhaps. "He cannot return," they murmured, almost as if trying to convince themselves as much as the crowd, but a dark cloud loomed larger, and across the town, people began to whisper of shadows seen trailing through the alleys, of unfamiliar figures that watched from the rooftops. Whispers of A's name on the lips of those who had been wronged filled the air again, drowning out the protests of rationality. What if their beloved son was truly gone? What if his fate had merely shifted into darkness, simmering just below the surface? Raising their arms, the robed figure commanded silence once more, compelling the audience to stare into the depths of their fears. "The gods have spoken. To uncover the truth, you must confront your own. Each of you possesses a part of A's legacy, a choice woven into the fabric of your own sin. Are you not complicit in his fall? A choice." Someone whispered from the edge of the crowd, their voice fragile, quaking with the weight of possibility. Panic surged, eyes darted, grappling with the notion that perhaps their destinies were tied to A's tragic end. "Your past will reveal itself," the figure warned, "and the night is far from over. Soon, the shadows will rise, demanding what is owed. Seek the truth before it seeks you." With that, the figure turned and stepped back into the swirling shadows from which they came. Silence hung heavy like the dark clouds above, pregnant with tension. And as they processed the warning, storms rumbled in the distance, echoing the unspoken dread now festering within each heart. What truth awaited them in the depths of their own memories? Who among them would dare to seek it? And more importantly, would they survive the answer? Questions hung in the air like thick smoke. The gathered souls felt an eerie compulsion, one that could lead them down a perilous path or into the embrace of their darkest fears. As thunder cracked again, the night watched hungrily, poised for the truths that were to unravel. A thick silence draped over the crowd, each person caught between disbelief and dread. As the distant thunder rolled, a heavy fog began to creep in, wrapping its icy fingers around their ankles, pulling doubt into their hearts like a cold tide. The woman who had screamed, her fear palpable, stood at the forefront still trembling. "I saw him," she repeated, her voice cracking. "He was standing right there, in the field where stopped." A man bellowed, his face twisted in rage. "You are scaring everyone. If you saw him, it was just a trick of the light. This is madness." "But what if it's not?" Another voice piped up, laced with trembling uncertainty. A group shifted, whispering. Once the pride of the town, now they were haunted by shadows of his legacy. "Listen." A voice rang out, and the crowd turned to see an elderly woman step forward, frail but fierce as she met their terrified gazes. "We must confront this. We need to know what secrets lie under A's name." A wave of murmuring surged through the crowd. Could it be true? Did they harbor pieces of his tale? The air thickened with the weight of expectation and fear, a volatile mixture that could ignite at any moment. Somewhere, a door creaked open, breaking the tension. From the darkened alley, a cloaked figure emerged, the shadows swallowing their shape. Gasps echoed again, more pronounced now as every eye turned instinctively toward the newcomer. "What brings you here?" demanded the old woman, voice strong as she held the gaze of the figure. Muffled whispers rippled through the audience. Were they welcoming darkness, or was this an ally? "I seek what has been hidden," the figure replied, voice again low yet brimming with fervor. There was something familiar about them, a cold breeze carrying the scent of the past. The secrets of air were not meant to be buried. They demand to be uncovered. One by one, they stepped back, some fleeing, but many stood frozen, drawn by an unseen pull. "Why?" a young man shouted defiantly, his bravado masked by an underlying tremor. "What do you gain from this?" "What do we gain?" "Revelation," the cloaked figure proclaimed, revealing a shard of moonlight that glinted off a pendant nestled near their chest. "Truth is always painful, but it leads to the freedom that hides in shadows." The crowd divided. Some caught in lingering fear, choosing instead to deny what they had heard. Others, emboldened by the darkness, nodded a silent pledge to confront the weight of their own sins, each sin a thread tying them to A's fate. In the midst of this tumult, a low moan rippled through the air. Everyone startled, eyes widening. It came again, more distinct now, drawing attention to the fields beyond, where A had wandered, or had haunted. What had he offered to the shadows that now seeped into their veins? "What if we have to pay for our past?" A voice trembled, barely audible, yet it sliced through the growing tension like a knife. What does that mean for us? And then it happened. A flash of pale light arced through the clouds above, fading as quickly as it had appeared. Gas turned to soft sobs, a collective acknowledgement of grim reality and hidden fears. The cloaked figure took a step closer, their eyes burning with intensity. You cannot escape it. And suddenly, one woman, trembling yet fierce, took a bold step forward. If we must confront our past, then let it be now. Stand with me. The fearfulness in her voice transformed into a rallying cry. Other voices chimed in, a chaotic chorus blending with the howls of the wind. Together we can face this. Thunder clapped above them like a cosmic drumroll, urging them on as the storm brewed, and clouds turned a deep, swirling grey. What truths would emerge from the cacophony of choices? Only time would reveal the price they would pay. But they stood ready, for something shifted in that moment. The night was dark, but the dawn whispered promises just beyond the horizon. As they moved toward the horizon together, haunted by shadows and a legacy long buried, the air crackled with uncertainty. Out in the fields, a whisper rippled. Through the grass, find me. What awaited them in that revelation? What price would they pay for the truth? With a collective breath, the crowd surged forward, their hearts pounding like drums against the tempest brewing overhead. Each step felt heavy, burdened by the weight of their past and the unknown truths waiting to be unearthed. The cloaked figure, standing firm in the front line, turned toward the darkened fields, the edges of their silhouette blurred by the dense fog. If you desire to face your fears, do not shy away. The time has come to unlock the chains of AS legacy. Electricity surged through the air as the words hung, thick and tangible. The people moved closer, urged by the clarity in the stranger's tone. One by one, they felt the gravity of their history pulling them in, intertwining their fates and sins as if caught in a web spun by the very shadows they feared. Do we really want to do this? Whispered a man, his voice barely breaking over the wind's howl. His eyes darted, reflecting uncertainty. What if AS truth brings darkness we can't handle? Or what if it sets us free? A young woman retorted, surprise in her voice, emboldened by a sudden rush of passion. It swept through her, igniting a spark in the others, like flickers of candle flames catching in a breeze. The elderly woman stepped beside the cloaked figure, an anchor amidst the storm. Fear has ruled us for too long, my dear friends. Do we let the shadows of yesterday dictate our tomorrows? Or shall we be the light that pierces the dark? A murmuring echoed. Each face reflected a tapestry of emotions, hope intertwined with fear, courage battling doubt. The night had never felt so alive, as if the very land beneath them thrummed with life and secrets hidden beneath its surface. Suddenly, the fog began to swirl, and with it came the low, ghostly moan that had unsettled them moments before. It rose from the earth as if something ancient was stirring, reluctantly breaking free from its long slumber. Gasps broke around the crowd as the air turned thick and suffocating, saturated with anticipation. Hold on to each other. The cloaked figure commanded, eyes aflame with fervor. Let go of your fears and embrace the truth together. As if caught in a tornado of voices, they all intertwined, hands grasping tightly, forming a chain of defiance. Suddenly, lightning split the sky, illuminating the field for an instant, a frozen moment of doubt and courage colliding. And there, in that flickering light, they saw it, a figure standing still, silhouetted against the night, its form indistinct yet hauntingly familiar. The crowd shuddered, but they remained rooted, hearts pounding. Eh? A voice called out, trembling but infused with resolve. The figure didn't answer. Instead, it pointed toward the darkened heart of the field. The mist rolled back, revealing a long-forgotten entrance to something beneath, something pulsing with the energy of a history begging to be unveiled. What lay hidden beneath their feet? A grave. A prison. The echoes of a forgotten tale. The cloaked figure, sensing their mounting fear, leaned closer. It is time to choose to delve into what you've buried long ago. As they stood there, confusion swirling, AS presence loomed heavier, a whisper in the winds beckoning them into the depths of their history. Would they dare cross the threshold, risking everything for the knowledge held within? And in a moment, before any answer could depart their lips, the ground trembled slightly beneath them like the heartbeat of the earth itself, urging them to commit. The crowd stood poised at the brink of uncertainty, ready to confront a truth that could shatter or illuminate their very existence. What lay within the entrance? Was it a key to their freedom, or the very chains that held them back? The tension in the air felt like a tightrope stretched taut, vibrating with unspoken fears and unresolved questions. The cloaked figure, with a fire in their eyes, stood silhouetted against the tempest, an unwilling beacon drawing them closer to the entrance that promised revelation or devastation. "Come," the figure demanded, voice steady yet crackling with urgency. The words ignited something fierce in the hearts of the crowd. For every inch they had come to stand still, uncertainties melted away with the electricity hanging thick in the air around them. They could feel the heartbeat of the earth beneath their feet, quickening as if urging them to leap into the abyss. As if sensing the moment was ripe, a sudden gust of wind howled through the field, carrying echoes of forgotten cries and memories long buried. The whispers of past tragedies swept through the crowd, churning within them. Faces twisted in emotions, fear danced alongside fierce curiosity. "As truth should frighten us," the elderly woman shouted, her voice rising above the chaos. "It belongs to us. We cannot run away from the shadows of our past." Her words resonated, rallying those who remained hesitant. One step back quickly turned into a step forward, then another. They were ready to embrace whatever lay ahead, but tension gripped them anew as the fog thickened, swirling in labyrinthine patterns at their feet. A gaping maw seemed to appear in the earth, beckoning them closer. This was no grave, it was a portal to a past riddled with hope and despair, secrets and sacrifices. The cloaked figure, slowly raising a hand, invoked silence among the restless crowd. "Understand this, what you see as chains can also be keys. Only by embracing the darkness can you find the light." The witching hour pressed down on them, and doubt seeped back in like a creeping vine. What if the legacy contained horrors they weren't prepared to confront? But it was then that a soft voice pierced through the murmurings, clear as day. "What if it's a choice?" It was the young woman from before, and she stepped forward, confidence blazing in her eyes. "A choice to redefine what AS legacy means to us. We have been dragged by the ropes of fear for too long. We have the power to change our narrative. We face the truth together." The crowd shifted, uncertainty morphing into determination. One by one, hands clenched tighter, mirroring the heat rushing between them. Then they took a collective step toward the entrance, a decisive action that sent a tremor through the ground beneath. It was raw and primal. A surge of courage flooded them. The light of the lightning bolts above illuminated the entrance, casting the shadows aside briefly, revealing an inscription etched into the stone archway, "Only in truth shall you find liberation." But suddenly, a low, rumbling growl echoed from within the darkness, drawing weary gasps from the crowd. Dread soaked the air like a heavy fog, and they faltered, instinctively stepping back. "Do you hear that?" a man whispered. His face was pale, mirroring the doubts they all felt. "What if we awaken something we can't control?" The cloaked figure steadied the group, reassuring them with an intensity that resonated deep within. "Together. This is a journey meant for all. Do not let fear overtake you." As the growls grew louder, a flash of something moved in the shadows, and with it, a roar of unseen horrors began to rise from the depths. The entrance quivered, revealing a crack, a space wide enough for hands to reach out and grasp at the unknown. What awaited them in that yawning abyss? Was it liberation waiting, or chaos threatening to break free? Each pulse of the earth hinted at a former nightmare, unsuspected yet tantalizing in its promise. The crowd breached the threshold, not yet in, but leaning towards the edge. The air hummed with energy, thick with the weight of the moment, as they steadied themselves for the unknown truths ahead. With their hands intertwined, hearts pounding in unison, would they step boldly into the darkness? Or would they scatter back to the safety of shadows, forever haunted by a truth left unclaimed? And then, among the swirling fog, something began to form, an image, familiar and terrifying. A memory resurfaced from their collective past, beckoning them closer. What face was emerging from the depths? The crowd held its breath, wide-eyed with anticipation and fear as the fog thickened, revealing the first contours of the face lurking within. It was an image they knew well, yet had buried deep within the crevices of their hearts, a face that belonged to a hero-turned-villain, a boy they once adored and now dared not name. As the features sharpened, gasps spilled among them. "It can't be," someone choked out, voice trembling. "It's him." The figure's face lit up with torment and longing, eyes blazing with memories, their memories. The young woman stepped further into the crack, her cheeks wet with mingled emotions of disbelief and sorrow. "This isn't how it ended, it can't be." Yet the growls grew louder, a sinister drumming in their chest, matching the frantic rhythm of their hearts. Each drum echoed the name of the boy they had lost, snuffed out too soon, like a flickering candle in a storm. The cloaked figure intoned, their voice woven with a strange reverence. With every syllable, they seem to unlock a door to the past, a door that may have been better left shut. He is the truth you fear, the legacy you deny. A murmur rose from the back, unsettled whispers stirring their resolve into chaos. We came here for answers, not to dredge up the past. A man shouted, fear bubbling over. Others began shifting back, the bravado visible just moments prior now fragile in the face of what was being revealed. Listen to the silence, the cloaked figure commanded, raising a hand as the growls fell momentarily silent. In silence lies the truth and the pain. Do not turn your back now, it is time to confront what was lost. The young woman's brow furrowed, fighting against the tide of uncertainty. No more running. If we face this together, we can find forgiveness. We can heal. As if in response, the fog wove tighter, swirling ominously as the figure of air began to shimmer. What came next was horrifying. A vision played across the minds of those who dared to watch, the laughter, the betrayal, the screams, no, not just screams, but the cries of loved ones lost, of consequences unraveling through time. The boy's final moments loomed over them, heavy and suffocating. A woman near the front, gripping the hand of her daughter, trembled. Is this really how we remember him? The question sliced through the air, and the crowd sank into an uneasy quiet. Suddenly, the ground tremored beneath them, as if air himself, caught in a limbo of emotions, sought a way to return or perhaps, to avenge what was taken from him. The cloaked figure turned, unwavering. Free yourselves from guilt. Feel the truth, raw and visceral. This is a legacy, not his alone. Thunder roared overhead, rattling their resolve as fear clutched at their throats. Suddenly, A.'s visage morphed, shifting from anguish to anger, before twisting into a sorrowful plea. I was more than my end. He cried, voice echoing through the fog, a wailing lament that clawed at their very souls. A storm of emotions raged within the crowd, a hurricane of memories, grief, love, and regret. Would they accept this haunting truth? Could they finally reconcile with the past? Just then, an explosion of light burst from the crack, illuminating the world in flashes of blinding brightness. The silhouettes of those present flickered like shadows cast by flickering flames, teetering on the brink of the known and the unknown, and yet, beneath it all, a whisper, a promise, perhaps lingered in the air. Only through redemption can you find peace. For a split second, they stood still, suspended between the world they knew and the abyss before them. Then, with a ferocity unmatched, the darkness began to swell, wrapping around them like tendrils of smoke. But in that swirling nightmare, they could still see the echoes of hope glimmering through what awaited them on the other side of this truth. Would they rise against the tide of darkness, or would they drown in the stories that haunted them? The answers loomed, just beyond the glimmering edge of the abyss. The fog thickened, a suffocating weight that seemed to compress the air. Hearts raced, breaths quickened, and all eyes were drawn to the mesmerizing spectacle before them. The light from the crack pulsed like a heartbeat, brightening with each anguished cry of the figure. It was a siren's call wrapped in sorrow, drawing them deeper into their own pain. Stay strong, the young woman shouted. But her voice shook, faltering in the face of ancient dread. Shadows danced around her, twisting and writhing, each echo of A.'s voice spurring harsh memories buried for so long. Something shifted in the crowd, an almost imperceptible ripple. One woman, with tears streaming down her face, grasped the arm of her neighbor. What if he is right? What if we did this to him? Her voice trembled, heavy with the weight of unspoken guilt. Don't you see? The cloaked figure interjected, their voice like thunder. You are bound by chains of your own making. Release them, or be engulfed by his wrath. The air crackled with tension as everyone wrestled with their own ghosts. Memories flooded in a whisper of laughter, the taste of bitter betrayal. Each sound seemed to pierce deeper than the last. The boy A had been a hero, a beacon of hope, before he had become the specter looming over their lives. Fear gripped them, but was it fear of him or fear of themselves? Then, the ground rumbled again, stronger this time. Panic seeped into the crowd, people stumbling back, eyes wide with terror. In that moment, a heavy silence descended, pin-drop stillness broken only by the frantic thudding of hearts. Then, the darkness surged, a tidal wave of despair that sought to swallow them whole. Shadows coiled around their ankles, pulsing like the breaths of the forgotten. And from that gloom, A.'s face twisted once more, his expression shifting from anguish to rage to begging. Help me, he screamed. I'm more than this darkness. A collective gasp tore through the crowd, each member feeling the force of that desperate plea. A sensation settled in the pit of their stomachs, a mixture of panic and empathy. Is this what we're meant to face? The young woman cried, her voice rising above the chaos. The truth is not just about him. It's about us. We are part of his story. One man, standing at the back, clenched his fist. So we've been complicit. We've brushed our guilt beneath a rug for too long. His eyes narrowed, his mind racing through the tangled paths of their shared history. Look at him. The cloaked figure commanded. What do you see? A monster. Or a reflection of your own mistakes? With that, the crowd suddenly froze, the swirling dark momentarily parting to reveal the truth. Every dark corner of their past mirrored back at them. The faces of the loved ones they had lost hung heavy in the air, twisting into expressions of sorrow. The young woman took a step forward, determined yet hesitant. What if we unite? She shouted. What if we confront our fears, our pain? Together. Then, just as suddenly as the stillness came, a roar erupted from the darkness, a deafening wave that slammed into them, pushing the boundaries of their sanity. They were teetering at the edge, on the brink of something monumental, yet terrified to leap. No more running. She shouted again, her voice fierce. We must embrace this darkness, split it apart and expose it for what it is. More murmurs rose from the crowd, fear intermingling with a shivering hint of hope. Could they really seize their legacy from the grip of despair? Tendrils of darkness surged forward, ready to consume them all, and just when it seemed that the abyss would swallow them whole, a piercing light broke through, illuminating the path beneath their feet. Awestruck, they looked toward the crack where the light was blooming forcefully. In that moment, everything shifted, and the question loomed ever larger: what lay beyond the light? A way to redemption, or an even deeper darkness? The crack widened, the light spilling out like molten gold onto the cold, dark ground. It was blinding, a radiant beacon that cut through the oppressive fog. The shadows recoiled, shrinking back as if afraid of the purity of that illumination. Whispers erupted, panic gripping the crowd anew. What if it consumes us? A voice quivered from the edge of the throng. Faces twisted in fear, the air thick with uncertainty. The young woman felt the weight of their trepidation. Don't be afraid. She called, her voice raw but steady. We are not fighting alone. If we step into that light, we confront the truth of our past and break free. But doubt hung heavily in the air, the lingering guilt paralyzing those who had sealed their hearts off for far too long. A man stepped forward, his face shadowed, fists clenched. How can we trust what we can't see? His words dripped with despair, the untrusting soul in a desperate world. Trust in what you feel. She replied, eyes glistening with fervor. Trust in our strength together. Her shout rippled through the crowd, igniting a flicker of kindling hope. People glanced at one another, sharing the frightened glances of those who felt cornered, a community lost in their own shadows, unsure whether to advance or retreat. The trembling ground beneath them gave a low groan, a reminder that time was running out. Then, the cloaked figure stepped forward, a silhouette against the golden light. The darkness is fear, they declared, voice booming with conviction. Fear of your own truths. To stay stagnant is to choose despair. Now is the time to confront it. What are you waiting for? The crowd shifted, a collective pulse of conflicted emotions. One by one, they began to step back from the darkness, their faces lifting toward the light. It was a fragile bond forming amidst chaos, illuminating the tiniest hope that maybe, just maybe, they could conquer their burdens together. Then came a sudden crash, the ground trembling more violently. Panic tore through the gathered souls again. It's not over. They shouted, pushing back against the gathering storm. We can't let abruptly be in vain. The pulse of the light quickened in rhythm, echoing the lace of their courage. Yet beneath the dark waves churning, twisted tendrils of despair fought back. They surged forward, responding to the gathering strength of the crowd. Fear clawed at their ankles, threatening to drag them back into the abyss. A scream split the air, raw and visceral, pulling everyone back into their own memories. A mother lost, a brother betrayed, a love torn apart. The shadows played with their heartstrings, and doubt began to thread itself back into the fabric of their unity. Just then, the young woman felt a surge of strength. We are not defined by what we've done. Step toward the light. We must remember the love that connects us. This moment can redefine our story. Some faces hardened, some flickered with determination. Others still flinched, bracing for impact from unseen forces. They were at a precipice, the light dazzling yet daunting, and then, as if punctuating her words, there was an explosion erupt through the fabric of the darkness. The light erupted, pushing the shadows back as if separating the water from the shore. But in the midst of this battle, the face of A appeared again, clearer now than ever, his expression stark with yet unknown struggle. "Remember me," he cried, his voice piercing above the chaos. "Your truths must come alive in the light. Do not forget me." The crowd wavered, the essence of their conflict hanging palpably between hope and despair. "Will we let ignorance drown us again?" The cloaked figure boomed, standing firm against the seeping despair. They were on the brink of revelation. But just as the last barrier seemed ready to crumble, the darkness roared anew, and the connection with air faltered, sending shockwaves of doubt coursing through their hearts. Could they seize that moment and learn from their shadows, or would they succumb once more? The light flickered, swirling like a dancer caught in the wind. What would happen if they embraced it now? Would it lead them to salvation or a truth too dark to face? The air crackled with tension as the light pulsed, pushing back against the encroaching darkness. The intensity of the moment wrapped around the young woman like a shroud, each heartbeat echoing in her ears. She glanced at the crowd, their features twisted in a mix of fear and longing, caught between the haunting memories that anchored them and the hope shimmering just out of reach. "Now," she urged again, her voice rising above the chaos. "Step into the light. It's time to let go." With each word, a handful of souls began to move. Tentative first steps turned into a breakthrough as those once consumed by despair broke free from their shackles. But the shadows didn't relent. They lashed out, wrapping cold tendrils around ankles, pulling at the heartstrings of the crowd. "Fight it!" A woman screamed, her voice cracking, as she stumbled backward, fighting against the invisible grip. "Don't let it take you." Suddenly, a bone-rattling roar erupted from the crack, a fierce reminder of the dark force that refused to fade. The cloaked figure steadied their stance, eyes gleaming like stars in the darkened sky. "You must bind your hearts. Remember what you value. We are stronger together against this bleak storm." The words resonated, sparking a resolve in some. They reached for hands, forming a chain of connection that vibrated with shared determination. She could see the flickers of understanding sparking in the eyes of her neighbors. Yes, they could do this. They could change the narrative, yet, amidst this transformation, a sinister voice echoed through the dark. "You are chained by your past. No light can save you." It slithered through the crowd like a serpent, wrapping around minds already fragile, instilling doubt. Faces paled as memories seized them, regrets riot in their consciousness. A father as betrayal, a sister lost too soon, all swirling in a crippling fog of despair. Those memories became chains, suffocating their will to move forward. "Don't listen," she cried, fighting against the whispers that fanned the flames of fear. "You are not your mistakes. We rise by facing our truths together." Just as hope flickered, the ground trembled yet again. The crack widened dangerously, and a blinding flash erupted, forcing everyone to shield their eyes. A tidal wave of darkness surged forth, as if the void itself sought to swallow them whole. Screams punctured the air, the cacophony mingling with the roar of the storm. A flash of clarity seized the young woman. With every ounce of her being, she called out, "Air." She lifted her face to the light, memories rushing forth. Images of laughter, shared meals, and late-night conversations flooded her mind. "You are still here. Your courage still lives in us." But just as her conviction reached its peak, a figure launched from the edge of the crowd, breaking the fragile line of unity. A man, gripped by despair, sprinted toward the shadows, eyes wide. "No. I can't," he shouted, his voice plagued with desperation. "I can't face it." Panic exploded. Murmurs rose and faded, igniting fear anew. The enveloping darkness convulsed, emboldened by the fracture, its power surging with every wavering heart. With barely a second to react, she realized their connection was fracturing. "Hold on," she screamed, desperately grasping hands reaching into the void. They needed him. It wasn't just about Air's memory. It was about confronting their collective past, about healing the scars that had festered. The light flickered precariously, a dance of hopeful resilience against despair. But as shadows writhed, the moment hovered in a tense silence, waiting for someone to make the next move. The crowd held its collective breath, teetering on the edge. Was there enough strength left to reach him? Would they choose to step into the light or succumb to the shadows? The split-second choice marked the ground like a pendulum swinging towards fate. The air throbbed with uncertainty. "Now," she urged again, willing them to find their courage. But would they listen? Were they ready to face either the light or the truth lying in wait? The answer loomed just ahead, veiled in an ominous mist. The air crackled with tension as the shadows roared, and the light pulsed insistently, challenging them to decide. The crowd was a storm of emotions, swaying between fear and hope. The cloaked figure stood firm, a silhouette against the blinding brightness. "You must choose," they cried passionately, their voice cutting through the chaos like a sword. Eyes flashed with uncertainty, hearts thundered in unison, the revelation of their past hanging in delicate balance. Finally, the young woman who had rallied them stepped forward. Her heart pounded, but her resolve was unwavering. "We are not our pasts. We are the storytellers of our lives," she shouted, her voice rising above the tumult with a fierce defiance. "As legacy, it's ours to bear, yes, but also ours to reclaim." As if drawn by an invisible thread, those who had once teetered on the edge began to move. They stepped towards her voice, each footfall emboldened by the light flickering above. One by one, hands reached for one another, fingers intertwining, creating a chain that resisted the encroaching darkness. The shadows writhed, as if sensing their defiance. Panic fled. "What if we cannot withstand it?" came a terrified gasp from the rear. But the young woman felt a swell of strength building. "Together," she commanded, tipping the balance. "Together, we can pull light from shadow." With that, the crack widened further, and a vibrant light surged, illuminating more of the darkness that had held them captive for far too long. The growls echoed like distant thunder, but the crowd held on, bolstered by a fragile yet potent sense of unity growing stronger. The less brave clung desperately to those standing firm, faces illuminated by hope breaking through the fog of despair. "Don't let go," the cloaked figure urged, voice wrapping around them like a warm cocoon. "The truth of air weighs down on us, but in choosing to look, we shatter the chains of regret." At that moment, amid the swirling chaos and flashes of light, she could see the figure of air, caught between worlds, yearning to be freed from the weight of his tragic end. A face marked with pain, longing, and the flickering energy of love once shared. "Remember, I was more than my fall." A's voice rang clear, slicing through their fears, echoing in their hearts like a beacon. "I'm with you." A voice came from deep within the gathered mass, a man stepping forward, chest heaving with grit. He grasped a neighbor's hand. "Provide me courage." With that, others felt it too, and urgency sparked in every breath, a tide of resolution rolling through them. "Let us bring the light home." And together, they surged forward. They reached for the blinding glow, arms stretched wide, hearts beating in unified hope. The moment broke, the shadows retreated with misery, agonized cries swirling into the thin air, drowning into nothing. With a deafening roar, darkness imploded, dispersing, disintegrating beneath their combined hope. The crack echoed with a thunderous sound, a wild release nearly palpable, creeping through every one of them. Then silence fell, stillness filling the air dubbed heavy with the scent of renewal. A brilliance washed over them, illuminating the landscape, the ground beneath their feet glowing with the energy of rebirth. Whispers of their past lingered like perfume, sweet yet bittersweet, as they stood shoulder to shoulder. His figure shimmered before them, eyes shining bright with gratitude. "You've chosen light, you've chosen to face the truth. In doing so, you have released the weight I carried alone." The assembled folk stood breathless, overwhelmed by the life ahead. The burden of guilt ceased to consume them. It was as if a heavy mist had been lifted. Each of them would walk a different path from that moment on, but they would bear the memory of a close to their hearts, transformed through acceptance and love. There were tears, but they were tears of healing, not despair. With a final glance toward the vast horizon, the haunting spirit of air began to fade, his light intertwining with theirs, leaving behind flickering embers of hope. In its wake, and as dawn broke, the townspeople took a collective breath, alive with possibility. It was a new beginning, an opportunity to carve a brighter legacy from the depths of their shadows. They dispersed slowly, but in unity, with the understanding that every choice mattered, and each memory could be a source of strength or flight. It was a bittersweet farewell, but in that goodbye, they found something profound, a community reborn from darkness, stepping bravely into the light of their truth. And in that spirit, dear friends, we invite you to start your journey today. You need to subscribe now. Don't miss the next exclusive stories that await. These journeys only get more profound. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and help others find this vital message. Flood the comments section with your reactions, theories, or your own stories of truth and redemption. And finally, don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Every action you take helps us keep exploring these tales together, so let us keep this community growing strong.